Hello everybody and welcome back to the Doctor's Garage. So I'm very excited in this video today because I'm going to be showing you everything we know about the Range Rover Sport for 2023, the brand new redesign. And in this video as well, towards the end, I'm going to be showing you an uncovered picture from what I assume is the Land Rover production line of a brand new Sport with none of that swirly camouflage on at all. So stay tuned till the end of the video. So for those that don't follow the channel regularly, I own a Land Rover Discovery 5 and a Land Rover Defender. And for me, the Range Rover Sport has always been a car that I've admired. It's always been one that I've quite fancied, but actually, due to my lifestyle, things that I do, things I need to carry, the Discovery is a better fit. It has a lot more capacity in the sense of load space and boot space and all those sorts of things. So for me, I've never actually gone ahead and had a Range Rover Sport as a car that I've owned, but it is something I would consider in the future. And so the 2023 car as the whole is quite an exciting new prospect with the new design language followed from the brand new launch of the Range Rover. That launch I went to about 6 months ago, actually went to one in a dealership, had a walk around, had a sit in the car and just kind of took it all in really. And I think the new Range Rover Sport is going to be something that will follow along a lot of the same design elements as its bigger brother, the Range Rover. So let's talk about what we know so far with the new Range Rover Sport, and actually let's take a look at some photos together of the front, the side and the rear. And I'm going to be doing that whilst drawing along here on my iPad so you can see exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about those particular features. So let's start with the front of the car. Let's start with what probably is the most identifiable part that you can see carried through from the older Sports, but also the Range Rover itself. And I think the first thing to note when you look at this is this grille. This grille is so similar to what is found on the bigger Range Rover and kind of part of the new series that Land Rover are producing. The next thing to note really is the headlights. They're slightly more curved than what we see on the bigger Range Rover, but still have that very similar kind of sleek inbuilt design element where they sort of blend in from the bumper right through to the bonnet, which is something that the later Range Rover Sport models are. So I'd say the 2019, the 2020, the 2021, as that goes on, this headlight design is kind of evolving, but this is definitely part of the new design element that we see here in the new Range Rover Sport. The other thing to note are things like the grille sets through here, the lower parts. These are all quite similar to me to what I see actually in cars like the Velar. I think when the Velar was released, it had a lot of futuristic design elements that Land Rover put into this. These are just completely my own opinions, my own thoughts, but I do think this has very much a Velar-esque element to it. And I think that has been carried through into the larger Range Rover, but also obviously here in the Sport. The other thing we can see from the front is just generally the scoop of the car and the shape of the car is really similar to what we would expect of a Sport. So slightly more aggressive stance than what I saw when I looked at the bigger Range Rover, when I went to see that in person at the launch. But overall, still in keeping with what we would think of a Sport looking like. When we look at the car from this angle, again, you can see what I believe is quite a Velar-esque shape to the car. And you can definitely see that when we start looking down the side of the vehicle in regards to these door handles. These are pretty much what was launched on the Velar, these pop-out door handles. They're on the bigger Range Rover, and I can see they're here on the Sport as well. In this image here, which looks like they're kind of loading it onto the back of a truck at a track, I think it is, you can see the handles have popped out here. Very, very similar as I mentioned before. And generally the whole kind of front angle of this car is still quite Sport-like, but definitely has elements of the new Range Rover carried through. The other thing to note when you're looking at this angle is this D-pillar. So the rear pillar of the car looks slightly more tapered. It's slightly more aggressive. And from what I've read of a lot of reports, they're saying this is quite similar to what actually you found on the coupe. So the car that was never really released very much, in very limited quantities, the Range Rover Coupe, this looks very, very similar to that, with that tapering kind of sharper angle. If you think about a lot of manufacturers producing now things like the GLE Coupe, you've got the Porsche Cayenne Coupe, so cars that have that kind of sweeped back design, the Range Rover Sport's definitely going a bit more after that. It's definitely got that more racy style about the back end as well. The rear of the car is where things start to get a little bit interesting, and I think for most people when the Range Rover is released, the rear is going to be where they see the biggest difference, and where if you've bought a brand new Range Rover Sport, you'll be really disappointed when the new one comes out, because there's going to be a really clear differentiation between the older styles and the newer cars. So when you look at the rear here, although it's got the camouflage on it, and I will be showing that picture very soon that doesn't have the camouflage on the rear, you can see the lights almost wrap around and they almost go right through to almost the center section. And I imagine what we're going to see on this car, much like the new Range Rover, and actually a lot of the cars in the range, I'm sure the Evoque will be following and the Velar will be following, is this kind of light bar that runs right through the rear end and almost joins up, and that'll probably be visible at night time when the car's driving. And that kind of design language of having that single light bar has actually been something that I guess has come from Porsche. They did that at the start with the kind of single light bar through the back. You see it on a lot of modern cars now. Even VW has started to adopt the same sort of designs there, and I think Range Rover are going to follow. The Sport's definitely going to have the same as the Range Rover through the back. When you look at the rear as well, there is more of an element here you can see of that kind of stronger tapered D pillar in the back, so that kind of gives it more of that kind of hunched look, more of an aggressive look that you see in this car. And also you'll notice that the number plate is slightly lower in this car. It definitely sits quite a lot lower than it used to in the previous model generation, but actually very similar sports elements. When you look at this kind of rear quarter of the car, there's definitely a lot of similarities between what's currently out there and what's on this new car as well. This is another good image of the rear of the car, and you can see here directly from the rear, you can almost imagine where it's going to say Range Rover across this bit here in that black gloss lettering, much like the new Range Rover does. Again, the lights are a little bit more curved around the rear end. You've got these twin fins on the top, and the whole bumper section just sits a little bit lower, and it gives it a slightly different look from the back, something that will be a big design change from what we currently see in the Range Rover Sport. But still, when I look at this from the rear, I can't help but see the Range Rover Velar as a kind of silhouette, the shape, the way this comes down through here. I feel this is very Velar-esque, but obviously much bigger, part of the newer series of cars. So the new Range Rover Sport will be built on the MLA platform, which is a platform that's been used in the newer Range Rover called the Modular Longitudinal Architecture platform, and that is one that is a much lighter platform build than is currently on the Range Rover Sports. The new Range Rover will be doing a full electric vehicle version on the MLA platform, and I imagine with the Sports there'll be something coming along probably within a year of launch where they also produce a fully electric version of a Sport as well. I imagine, and based on speculation from magazines such as Auto Express and Autocar, there's going to be a really wide range of 3-litre petrol, diesel engines, both with mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid variants. And like other manufacturers, Land Rover are still taking their time to kind of go into the full electric market, and I guess that's probably because a lot of their vehicles are used for working, probably not as much as they used to be, but certainly still people tow with those cars. They go on longer distances. So having a full electric lineup is going to be a bit detrimental to what some people use their cars for. The new Range Rover plug-in hybrid, when that comes out, you're going to have a 70-mile range, which is pretty good actually compared to the rest of the Land Rover lineup. If you look at the new P300 Land Rover Defender, that only has about a 20 to 30-mile range. With a 70-mile range, even if you get 50 miles out of that in real world terms, that's still quite good from a plug-in charge. Then you've obviously got your gasoline engine under that just to power it further. There was a report on Autocar about the brand new SVR, and quite interestingly, they say they're using the same power plant that's going to be in the new BMW XM concept, which is kind of the bigger, better version of the new X7, and that's going to have a massive 4.4 litre, putting out over 600 horsepower, and actually there may even be a plug-in variant, which is pretty strange to think, but there might be an SVR which has a plug-in element, but that's kind of what it's looking like based on the engine design that's currently been used for BMW. Generally, when you're looking at launch, there was a meeting earlier this year, and one of the head guys at Land Rover said we're looking at a kind of expected launch date probably end of this year, and I imagine production, actually getting these into on the road, you're probably talking I would say mid 2023, just based on what I've read online. I think there's obviously the problems with the semiconductor shortage. Land Rover have got a massive backlog of cars they need to put out, so I imagine it'll be a little bit longer than they would like it to be, but I think by middle 2023, end of 2023, you'll see these cars on the roads. I suppose they've got to get all the new Range Rover out first and get all that sorted, get all those initial bugs sorted with it before they then move on to the Sport using exactly the same platform. So I've been promising this leaked picture from what I think is a factory at Land Rover. It's been something that's been circulating online on Instagram, particularly by an account called rangerover.world, so at rangerover.world, and this picture shows what looks like the back of a Range Rover Sport with a cover kind of half lifted off it. You can see clearly that new light bar in the back of the car, the new kind of rear light element that looks very similar to what the camouflage cars looks like. And this obviously is an SVR variant. You've got the quad exhaust there at the back, and even from this angle you can start to kind of make out what the new Sport will look like. I can't verify whether this image is real or not, but this is as close as we've got currently that's not got one of those camouflage swirl marks on it that shows this car. And actually, if you go to his Instagram account, there's some other stuff on there as well, so definitely go check it out. But quite an interesting angle to see this car at this early stage. So who knows if this is the new Range Rover Sport, but it certainly looks like it could well be based on the mix of the camouflage images we've seen and this one you've got right here. Please go out and check my other videos here on YouTube. I've got loads of videos of my Land Rover Discovery and videos of my older Land Rover Defender if you're into that too. Subscribe, like this video, and let me know what you think in the comments below of the new Range Rover Sport. And I'll see you guys in the next video.